Yo, what is up? Joshua Casper here with another Ableton Live video tutorial. This one's on making this mallet operator instrument rack. It's really dope. I'm going to play it for you in 1 second. But as always, you can go download it from the blog. Rate, subscribe, comment. Por favor. I don't know why I said that with like an Italian accent, but whatever. Go do it. It helps my channel apparently. But this is the sound we're going to make. So as you can see, or as you can hear and see, I guess, it's pretty nice. We're going to just use this little bit of MIDI here. I was just using this other part to kind of showcase the sound at the higher end of the spectrum. But essentially it's just an operator in there with 3 oscillators and some effects. So let's just go ahead and get started on making this bad boy by hitting Control-Shift-T to get a new MIDI track. For the effects, I was in a hurry, as I usually am, and I was just using some presets Ableton has supplied. Ping Pong Delay, just the pong, or the ping rather. I'm going to turn down the wet, turn it off for now. I also used preset in the room for the reverb, ambience medium. Look how lazy I was. I didn't even try out anything else. I just used this one. Again, I'm going to turn down the dry wet and turn it off. The next thing I'm going to do is throw a limiter on the end, and I'm going to leave that on just in case we get crazy. And I need an instrument, so I'm going to come into the operator and track it in there. And just to go ahead and get started and turn off the first or the top oscillator here, like I said, we're only going to use 3. On this bad boy, I'm going to have a little bit of attack coming in on it. And let's just see, actually, with some MIDI in there. I'm going to drag this down, and I do that by holding Control and dragging. I'm also going to freeze this, or I actually could have erased it, but that way my computer isn't too unhappy with me for recording this video. So this is what we have so far. Sweet. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the volume here, just so we can hear it. I hope you can hear that. Alright, that's pretty nice. And I've got a little bit of attack on there. That's pretty cool. And I'm going to have some decay. Oh, sustain. I want to pull down to infinite and beyond, and the sustain about 3.2 seconds or 3 seconds. Oh, 3.2 is good. Release. And as you can hear, I can pull down the volume a little bit. Cool. That looks pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Let's get the second oscillator going. Now the second oscillator is for if we're making a mallet instrument sound. There is some sound coming off when the mallet actually strikes, let's say, the piece of wood. So this second sound is going to be for, this second oscillator is going to be for that sound. So I want it to not sustain, and I want it to decay fairly rapidly. Yeah. And I also want to bring it up, and I want to bring the chorus all the way up, and let's see what that does. So it's almost like a resonance type sound happening there. And I'm going to turn it down a little bit more. So that's pretty cool. Let's get the decay about 28. Let's also bring in the release to about 28 milliseconds as well. That's pretty nice. And this next part is for like the mid-range nice sound. Oh yeah, what am I doing? This is not a sine wave. This needs to be a triangle because we're looking for something a little more grungy and a little more aggressive. That's a little better. And the third oscillator, we're going to go square 64. And we are going to turn it up. I don't know. Cool. And if I remember correctly, you have to adjust this fine and coarse to your taste. But if I remember, I had it at about 22 and 300, I think it was. So that's that nice kind of mid-range sound that's happening from the mallet striking it, and that little frequency range in there. So if I turn it off, you can hear how nice that sounds. And also, while we're on the sound of how nice it is, let's turn the tone up here. I'm going to play the sound, play the instrument, and I'm going to turn it down and then turn it all the way up to 100 just so you can notice the difference. And what this is going to give me a little more attention to that high end of the spectrum. So as you can hear, for this type of sound at 100% is really where it needs to be. I'm actually going to turn this down just a tad. That's pretty sweet, huh? So let me just come in and make sure. Oh, the envelope here. We need to get rid of some of this. Again, sustain. We don't want any sustain here. And we're going to pull it up to about 1 point. Sounds pretty nice, right? Sounds almost like a real malleted wooden instrument. Next thing we're going to do is come over to the LFO. We're going to turn it on, and we just want a little bit. We're going to leave it at 64, and I'm just going to turn it down to about... Just adds a little bit of life to it, okay? That's all we're doing here. And that's pretty much it for that. And that sounds like we're good to go. Okay, there's another couple of things I want to do inside of here, and this is the velocity key. And what this does is if I turn this up for this first oscillator, I'm going to turn it up to about 50. Now this is if you're going to be using your MIDI keyboard. The sound here, the volume of this will adjust itself by 50% on how hard you're hitting your keys. Or if you don't have a keyboard, it's going to be adjusted by these bad boys in here. So if I turn this down, let's turn this second one down. You hear how the volume went down there, and that's because of that velocity parameter inside of here. Now, for these other two sounds, I'm going to turn it all the way up to 100%. And the reason why I'm doing that is if I hit it really hard, I want the mallet sound to come in really strong. I mean, that's just, that just makes a lot of sense. If I hit it soft, I want it to be soft, but I want there still to be something. And now that I've done that, it's becoming louder because these velocity lines are already turned up a little bit. So what I need to do is come in and kind of turn it down a little bit. And you can hear how these are louder because these are turned up a little bit. And that is pretty sweet if you ask me. So now that the operator parameters are done, I'm going to turn on the ping pong and the reverb and see what we can get here. And I am kind of still coming in a little bit hot, and I don't want to be. So I'm going to leave this at -12. And that's pretty much the instrument I started with. Oops. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to group these together in an instrument rack. I don't know if you can hear me over those loud people outside. But I'm going to group these together in an instrument rack, and then I'm going to assign some parameters fairly quickly. I know we're already kind of running at a pretty big time length. So I'm going to click on the limiter here, and Control A to select them all, and then I'm going to right click and hit Group, which groups it to an instrument rack for me. I'm going to open it up. I don't need to see the chain selector, but I do want to see these macro knobs. I do need the chain selector for a second. I'm going to put this at macro 8. Turn it up to actually 0. To start, cool. I'm going to put the pan here on macro 2. And right now, it starts off all the way out to the left, but I want it to start off at 0 or centered. That looks good. What else can we do here? Okay, I want to map the mallet, how the level of the actual mallet hit itself that we were talking about before. And I'm going to map that to macro 1, and I'm going to turn it back up to about 27. Also, I'm going to come into map mode, and on the oscillator B level, I'm going to turn the minimum up to about -35, because no matter what, I always want there to be that sound, because otherwise it's not going to sound like an actual instrument. So now that I'm already down, I can still kind of hear that sound, and depending on how much you want them to hear it or you want it to be heard, we can adjust that level now using these knobs. So I'm going to come back in to about -27. Sweet. Okay, now that that's done, I can hide the chain selector or the chain selector and come in to map some of these bad boys. So I can also minimize operator so I can see more of what's going on. And dry wet, I'm going to go to macro 7, and I'm also going to do the on-off switch to macro 7 as well. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to name it delay. And when it's at 0%, I want the device to be off, and the way we do that is coming into the map mode, and we have the dry wet, cool, and then the device on the chain, on the ping, which is what we want, and I'm going to go 1 here and 0 here. So now when I come, why isn't that working? Was I mapping the wrong one? Let's color code it. Oh, see? So I've mapped this to the wrong channel, apparently. So let's map it here. Let's see what this does now. There we go. That's what I need it to be. And color coding helps it, because now I can see clearly what's going on. I apologize for that. I must have been going too fast. But anyway, now that it's at 0, the device is off, and when it comes on, it comes on. That's sweet. Cool. And what I'm doing right now is, because I messed up that first time, I'm coming in and right-clicking, and it will show me what is mapped to each macro knob right here. So this one only has that 1 parameter, and that's fine. This one has 2 parameters, and that's what I'm looking for. So that's good. So I'm glad I messed up that, so I could show you that little trick of color coding it to see inside of here, and also of the right click to see what's mapped to each macro knob. Not planned, but well executed, if you ask me. So the next thing I'm going to do is for the reverb as well. I'm going to go to 4, and I'm going to go to dry wet, and then I'm going to come in, rename it, verb. Let's capitalize that V. Perfect. And then I can color code it again and come into map, and again 1 0. Perfect. Out of map mode, and it's off, and now it's back on. Cool. The next thing I'm going to do is map the frequency to 6. Turn it up a little bit. And I'm also going to map the width here of the ping pong. So map to macro 5. So filter width and feedback, sweet. And one last macro here, so let's map the decay time and bring it back up just to start at a good spot. And I think that's a pretty sweet device, guys. You can come in and color code, because color coding is the fun part. This is what I look forward to. This is why I make operator devices or any sort of custom device in Ableton Live, just to make it nice and pretty. What do you want? Purple? Yeah, purple looks good. And maybe put its own color on the chain volume, because that's kind of important. Okay, and now that that's done, we can... another cool thing, too, is when you save, you want to save it how you want it to look when you open it. So if I save it right now, every time I open this device, I will see all of this. The operator will be minimized, and I will see these effects. But if I could do this and then save it now, every time I open the instrument rack, this is what I'll see, and this is where I can start. And that's pretty sweet, if you ask me. And anyway, there you go. There's another new instrument rack called the JC Mallet Dub Effects Dubsteps. No, I'm just kidding. But there it is. There's another instrument rack. Rate, subscribe, comment. Go download the rack if you want it. And we will see you next time.